Man, coding is hard. We actually have data. Yes! I have properties and preference is set to true. Hello everyone, welcome to another video. Here's what we are building today. Let's say that we're looking for houses. Instead of entering all our filters in an application like Zillow or Redfin, we're going to just use English language to look for a house. Here's how. We're going to say, looking for a 5-bedroom house in Seattle in the range of 1 million to 4 million. How many zeros are there in million? 4 million. And now that's all I'm going to type. And if I hit search, it'll give me a list of properties that match my recommendation. So that's what we're building today. We're going to use OpenAI, we're going to use Directus, we're going to use Tailwind and React. So if you're ready, let's get into it. First, let's set up our OpenAI API key. For this, I'm going to log into OpenAI's dashboard. And this is where you can create a new key. I already have a key, so I'm going to use what I have, but you can hit this button, create new key, to create a new key. Now, I've already set up React in this project using Vite. If you don't know how to set up React with Vite, here's a video I've created to help you do that. I've also gone ahead and added a proxy for my API so that I can have my server in an API route. Now, what we want to do here is we want to show an input field so that when a user types in a text, we can click the button, send that input message or that sentence over to our LLM that can then parse that sentence into a JSON structure and then send it over to our real estate API, which in our case is Zillow. So let's create that input field. Now, so far, I'm just returning hello world, but now let's just change it to search for properties in Seattle. And now I'm going to add an input field. Because the user could be entering a long sentence, instead of using an input field, I'm going to use text area. As you can see here, the text area is not very visible. Let's add some styling here. I've already set up Tailwind in this project, so it's going to make it very easy for me to add class names. So I'm going to write class name and watch this. It already looks so nice. So let's add a button. I'm going to create that handle search now. Okay. And if I open my console and I click search, I see this text being logged, processing search. Cool. Now the next step is printing the text that was input in the text area. So let's do that. In this text area, I'm going to add an onChange, set input value. And here I'm going to use useState to say input value, set input value. Actually, instead of input value, let's write search input. Set search input, and I'm going to use useState, and initial text is blank. And on this, I'm going to say set search input to be e.target.value. I can console log the text that was printed by appending that to the console log, and I'm going to put search input here. So now if I click search, processing search, hello world. Sweet. And this is literally all I need in my app right now. Okay, now the fun part. Now we're going to actually use the LLM to parse the text into JSON. I kid you not, this process is so easy because we're going to be using LangChain to integrate with OpenAI. Why am I using LangChain? What is LangChain? Let me show you. Okay, here's LangChain's documentation. LangChain is actually a wrapper or a orchestration layer on top of AI LLMs. It not only supports OpenAI LLMs, but also it supports other LLMs as well. So if you want to extend your application in the future and switch out from OpenAI to Google's LLM, then you can easily use LangChain to do that. I really like LangChain because it's also supported in JavaScript, which it's not that easy to find JavaScript supported frameworks for AI. LangChain's documentation has a tutorial on creating a simple LLM application. That's exactly what we're going to do today. The setup is super simple. For NPM, you just need to install LangChain core. Let's do that. So I'm going to install LangChain and LangChain core. Save that. Cool. All installed. Okay. The next step is to add your OpenAI API key. We've already set this up in our env variable. And then the next step is to instantiate the model. Literally, that's all the setup. So let's go ahead and start using the model. Before we look at the code, there's two things that I want to talk about. The first is output parser. Output parsers are useful when you're using LLMs to generate structured data or to normalize output from chat models and LLMs. And this is really helpful because if you want to transform natural language into a structured form of data, such as JSON or just strings, this can be really helpful. So in this example, we're going to use output parser. The specific output parser that I'm going to use is going to be the structured output parser because it accepts fields to be strings. And for us, our text is going to be in string. Next stuff that I'm going to talk about is prompt templates. Prompt templates help to translate user input and parameters into instructions for a language model. This can be used to guide a model's response, helping it understand the context and generate relevant and coherent language-based output. Prompt templates can be really helpful for us because in this example, we're going to pass the text to our template and let the LLM decide out of the instructions that we've given how to parse the text. So we can give it a simple sentence like looking for a 3-bedroom house in Seattle, should have a nice backyard. And with the help of prompt template, we can give it more context. We can give the LLM more context on what the output should look like. So we can say something like the bedroom should be a number, or if there are no bedrooms returned, return 1. So we can give it more context to generate meaningful output. So in this example, we're going to use prompt templates and output parser to create a JSON object from the sentence that we're going to write. Let's get into the code. Okay, I've already created my key here, and I'm picking it from my OpenAI API. Now I want to call LLM. So for that, I'm going to create a new OpenAI model. And in this, I'm going to pass in my OpenAPI key as the key that I just created. Move this inside. Next step, I'm going to create a parser. I'm going to be using structured output parser, and I'm going to create from Zod schema. The first thing I'm going to do is create an object, and I'm going to say price ending should be. And now I'm just specifying what fields I want my LLM API to give back to me. So I'm going to say that I need 3 fields: price ending, price starting, number of bedrooms, and number of bathrooms. So let's do that. So I'm specifying a Zod object. I'm saying the Zod object should have one field called price ending, which should be a string. And I'm going to give it a description. And this will help LLM parse the natural language text based on this description. This is how I provide context to LLM. So I'm going to say the ending range of the property, return 3 million if nothing is passed. Okay, then I'm going to create another object called price starting, which is going to be the same stuff as before, as the ending range, except this is going to be the starting range. And if nothing was passed, I'm going to return 1 million. Okay, then I also need bedrooms. So I'm going to say bedrooms, and then this is again going to be a number. And I'm going to specify that it's going to be number of bedrooms, return 1 if nothing is passed. And then bathrooms, that's it. Now I've defined my parser. So this gives information to the LLM that this is how we want natural language text to be parsed. So now that I've created my parser, I'm going to now call the LLM. In order to call the LLM, I'm going to use a chain. This is how we create a chain. I'm going to use runnable sequence. I'm going to provide a prompt template, and I'm going to say parse the description provided by the user to extract information about real estate preferences. And I'm telling it that I'm going to provide you format instructions, and I'm going to provide the description. I'll also pass in the LLM that I had just created here and give it the parser, which is how I provide context to the LLM on what information should be extracted from the text that I'm going to send in. Now all I need to do is invoke the chain. So I'm going to say response is equal to chain.invoke. And at this point, my chain expects me to pass a format instruction and description. So I need to pass that now. So I'm going to say description is the text that the user is going to send. For now, let's test it with a text that I will write. Looking for a 3-bedroom house in Seattle. It should have 2 bathrooms. The ending range is 2 million. The starting range is 1 million. So I'm just specifying it what I need. And then I also need to pass format instructions. I've got parser.get format instructions, and that's all I need. And now I can just console log response to see what the LLM creates. Now, if everything was fine, this should work. Now, in order to run this, I can call node llm.js. Oh, right, I've got a promise. I just need to await that. For that, I'm going to add async here. So let's add await here, and instead of console log response, I'm going to write test is this and console log test. Now, if I run llm.js, cool. I got price ending, price starting, my 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms. How nice was that? Now that we've created our LLM API, it's now time to call this LLM API by sending it descriptions from our UI. Let's do that now. Damn, coding is hard. I feel tired already. Time for the snack. Here, in our app, you remember we had this handle search function. So at this point, all we need to do is send this search input over to our LLM API. Let's create that now. I've set up a simple Express server. Here I've created an API endpoint parse properties, which is how I'm going to receive text from my UI and then send it over to my LLM. First step, I'm going to get requirements out of the endpoint. Then I'm going to call my LLM API with those requirements. Now I'm going to build an object called properties requirements, and this will be helpful in calling my real estate API. Next, I'm going to create a function called fetch properties, to which I'm going to send this properties requirements. Finally, I'm going to set the response headers and send the properties response. Let's handle parsing properties in this handle search function. So this is the URL that we have created on our server, the parse properties. Let's call this URL. And I'm going to call fetch API and I'm going to pass in the form data that I've just created, which is going to be the search input. And if the data that comes back from the fetch has an issue or there is something wrong with it, which means that response data is not going to be okay, we're going to capture the error message out of it and set a new error message. And if everything is okay, we're going to get the JSON out of this data. And now that we have this data, we can actually create a new set variable called properties and update properties based on the data that came back. Cool. One thing that we didn't do was fetch properties, so let's do that. So this function accepts properties requirements. I'm going to create an options object with the method of get the real estate API, which in my case is going to be Zillow. So this is the URL for Zillow API. Then I need to construct the body that I'm sending over, which is going to be properties requirements. And the parameters are going to be this. My location is set to Seattle. I'm looking for only sale properties. Then I need to send number of bedrooms, minimum price, maximum price. And this is what my real estate API accepts. At this point, I'm also going to pass in my headers. That's all fetch properties does. It sends back response data results. Once I have the properties response, I'm just going to send it back from parse properties. So I'm going to send a description. Now remember here in the description, we had actually hard-coded a description. Let's take this out, add description here, because we're going to get it from our API, remove this testing stuff, and accept description in the API. And then I'm going to send it over and search. Unexpected, doc type is not valid. JSON, let's see what's going on. Parse property sends 200, but I do get that I'm getting an unexpected token is not valid. I believe that's coming from server.js, right? It's because parse properties is sending it instead of a JSON, it's sending it as an HTML. So let's fix that. Where is parse properties? Server.js. Let's console log response data. Response data. Let's see what we get back. If I search, I have an info. Okay, I do have response coming back, which is good. Status is okay. That's good. That means I must not be getting in here. I must be here. Response data.json. What is the parse data? Let's console log that. If I search, what is the data I'm getting back? That might be the problem. Okay, let's go back. So I'm fetching the URL, which is parse property. So let's go to our server. Server has console log here. This parse properties is not getting logged. Then if I search this, nothing is getting logged. You know why? This needs to be the last thing. Okay, if I search, start this, and then search this, sweet. Now it's actually getting parsed. So that was the only problem. I just had to make sure that app.use was at the bottom. Let's try this again, node server.js. And I'm going to say looking for a 3-bedroom house in Seattle in the price range of 4 million to 8 million. Let's just search that. Okay, what is the problem now? Throw new output parser expression failed to parse, text is this, error is this. So looks like we're calling LLM at least properly. So let's find out what are we getting in LLM. If we go over to requirements, let's see what we get back. So if I get requirements, let's see what we have in here. And now I'm going to search again. Okay, cool. So I do have proper text being sent. That's good. That means those requirements are picked up properly. Now in my LLM API, let's see what's going on. So if I move over to LLM, let's see what is the text that I'm sending over. Okay, this might be the problem because I'm taking out description from here. Let's fix that by removing the destructure. Sweet, now I've got the description. Okay, new error. What is the problem now? If you look at the parameters here, there's actually price minimum is 4 million as in string. I think that's probably why it's broken. So let's actually give it a number. I'm going to give it 400,000 to 1 million. Sometimes LLM APIs are very finicky with the prompts, so you just have to experiment and see what's going on. Let's see if we're still getting an error. Did something happen? Search. That's the description. Something happened. Nothing is broken so far. Nothing is broken so far is a good sign. We were at app.jsx. We had just handled search. We are setting the properties. So now at this point, let's log what's parse data because it's possible that everything is working fine. Okay, search. We actually have data. Yes. Okay, let's look at this. So we actually have properties coming back. Sweet. Now we just need to render this in our React app. I'm going to do this part off screen so I don't bore you with all the details. So BRB. So now for the more exciting part. What is the point of an AI service if it cannot generate personalized recommendation? So let's set it up so that we can generate personalized recommendation. What is the first step of creating a personalized recommendation? You have to let the AI service know some things that you do like and some things that you don't like, aka your preferences. Now what we're going to do is create an ability to like a property and dislike a property so that we can use this information in the future to create a recommendation engine, which is going to be part 2 of this video series. But before we go there, we need to store that data somewhere. And for that, I'm going to use Directus as the database solution. Why am I using Directus as the database solution? Number one, with Directus, I get to own my data. We are not tied down to the database solution itself. It's a SQL-like database, so it is familiar for people who do know SQL. But also, if you're not a backend developer like me, the UI itself is super intuitive and you can create your database model on the fly using the UI itself. Plus, if you want to consume the data, update the data, and alter the tables, it gives you REST API and GraphQL API out of the box. You can also build automations on top of Directus. All in all, what I really love about Directus is that the UI is super intuitive. It's super easy for me to create. And as somebody who's not very comfortable with SQL, it makes it a lot easier for me to integrate with the database, store my information somewhere, and have access to REST API or GraphQL API based on my front-end application. Thank you so much to Directus for sponsoring this video. Let's see how to integrate with Directus. So far, this is what I have. I created a nice looking property so that you can see the featured image. You can see how much the property costs. And you can see how many bedrooms and bathrooms this has, plus the address of this property. Now, what I want to do is that I want to be able to tell my preference. So I want to say whether I like this property or I dislike this property. So I'm going to create two buttons, like and dislike. And I'm going to create this function called save property, through which I'm just storing which property I like and dislike. Now let's move on to Directus to actually save this in the database. So here's how we're going to create a collection in database. Creating a collection is super simple. Go into the settings panel, move to data model. I already have a data model called property here, which is what I'm going to use my code. But I still want to show you what creating a collection looks like. So hit this plus icon. And now here, you can create a new collection. So let's say that I call it property test, and my primary key field is going to be the ID itself. Now this is how you can add new fields in the database. So let's say that I do want the status, which is, and then the date created and date updated. And that's it. A new collection is created. This is a new table. Now I've created this database called property. So if I click on create item, you'll see that I already added unique ID, and that is the ID that is going to be specific to an item in my database. Then I have the ZPID or Zillow PID, which is actually the ID of the property from Zillow database. This is going to be helpful in the future if you want to get details of that property from Zillow. Then I have street address, price, which is the exact price of this property, bedrooms, bathrooms, city, image, sources, and then the preference. This is actually how I'm storing whether or not I like this property. And now I'm going to integrate with this database using just code. Let's do this. So actually, the documentation of this database is built into the panel. So if I click on documentation, it'll take me here. And honestly, adding items in the database is super simple. There's literally like the code right here. I'm just going to copy this. The only thing that you need is the SDK, Directus SDK. Let's go ahead and install that. npmi -save Directus SDK. Meanwhile, this installs, there's one thing I want you to know, which I stumbled upon a lot. Okay, so if you go to settings, you go to user roles, go to public, click on this, make sure that your collection is added as a create, read, update, delete permission. You'll be able to add a new item through the add collection button here. So let's say that I added this property test database. You can click on this and make sure that you have create, read, update, and delete permissions set in this panel. Once you have that, and I've already saved my package, sweet, I'm ready to integrate with my database. So like I said, it actually gives you all of the code right here. And if you look here, it says client create Directus. This is where your database goes. And then you can specify whether you want to use REST or GraphQL. How simple. Then you just say client.request, create an item, and this is where your property table goes and all of the fields that you want to save. So let's use this to save in our database. This is where my code is. I've got my client set stuff here, and I've got my database, which is luckily called database.directus.app, and I'm using the REST API endpoint. I'm going to create a new function here called save property to DB, and this is going to be an async function as well because I need to make a call to the database, and I'm going to pass in my property over, and here I'm just going to copy this code over. Instead of articles, my table is called property, and then the fields I need to pass is actually the fields that I have in my database right here. So I need to pass in all of these fields over. These are the fields I need to pass over, and all of these fields are going to come from the property. So const property is this, and then all I need to do is return this item. There you go. And now let's also create an endpoint called /save properties, api.save properties. And instead of save properties, I'm just going to say save property. And here I'm going to get the property out of the body, out of the request body. I'm going to send the property over to the function that I just created, allow origin, and send the response back, which is the item that I just created, over back to my client. And now in my client, I just need to call API save property. So what do I want to do? I want to create a like button, and I want to create a dislike button. so that I can tell the API whether or not I like or dislike this property. And that will help to build the recommendation engine. So far, I don't have a like button, so let's go ahead and create that. Okay, so I have this render properties function. I'm gonna go ahead and create a button within this render properties. I will add it right here. Okay, let's see. Button, like, and then button, dislike. How's that? Decent. Okay, add a div here. Hold on, let me style this off camera. Okay, I just added 2 buttons called like and dislike. Right now they don't do anything. Now what I want to do is that if I click on like, I want to say preference true, which is I like this property. And if I click dislike, I want to say preference false. So in order to do that, I actually need to pass in the property itself to my database. So basically, all I need to do is call the save property function with the bedrooms, bathrooms, city, street address, which is literally all of the information that I already have. For the like button, I'm going to set my preference to true. And for the dislike button, I'm going to do the same exact thing, but the preference set to false. Okay, now if I've done everything right, I should hit the like button and I should see the data in my database. I'm also going to open my console just to make sure that I don't have any errors. Okay, moment of truth. Let's do this. Drum roll. If I click like, what happened? Okay, save property is not defined at on-click. Okay, of course there have to be some errors. What is this error? We forgot to define this function save properties. Let's create that now. Okay, I just need to provide a URL, which is /API/save property. Actually, I was doing just a similar thing in handle search, so I'm gonna copy paste. Okay, and then add async. Okay, looking for a 3-bedroom house in Seattle in the range of, let's give it 800 to, okay, search. Cool, I'm trying to see some properties. Let's say that I like this property, like 500. Okay, what is the problem? I think this needs to be a capital P. Then if I like this, oh wait, my server is dead. Yeah, capital P. Okay, like, interesting. There was no error. No error means it might be good. So if I go to my data model, I have end properties. Preference is set to true. Yeah! Okay, so what did we do so far? We were able to search for properties in Seattle by providing a starting range, an ending range, number of bedrooms, the area we were looking for, by just literally typing a sentence in. We used AI to do that, and we stored our information in database, and we used Directus as a platform of choice. How cool! Also, not only did we save a property in the database, we also set up grounds for building a recommendation service, like and dislike preferences, which we are storing in our database as well. So that's how you integrate OpenAI in an application. I hope this was easy for you to understand. And if so, I want to see what do you build. Please share your GitHub link in the comment section below so I can check out what you've built. I would love to see your app. And if this video was helpful to you, please like, subscribe, and share this with a friend who may benefit from this and grow themselves as a developer. Remember, you're stronger than you think and you're smarter than you think. So keep coding, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.